Okay, so kinetochore is that area of the centromere, that portion of the centromere to which the kinetochore spindle fibers will attach. And when the sister chromatids have to move from the metaphase into the anaphase, one of the sister chromatid is pulled towards one pole and the other sister chromatid is pulled towards the other pole. So that pull is generated by certain protein fibers, and these protein fibers are also known as spindle fibers. So in the cell cycle, we see that there are three kind of fibers. One is kinetochore fibers, we have the polar fibers, and we have the astral fibers. So these kinetochore spindle fibers, they attach to a particular site on the chromosome, and that site is the centromeric region. Now, this centromeric region has got certain repetitive DNA sequences, and those repetitive DNA sequences are recognized by a group of proteins, and those group of proteins form a disc-shaped structure, and that structure is known as a kinetochore. This is important because the spindle fibers only recognize these protein structures or the kinetochores, and therefore the chromosomes are able to move towards the opposite poles when they transit from the metaphase into the anaphase. So there is a particular sequence, there is a specific sequence present in this area, which is important for the binding of the proteins and the formation of a disc-like structure, which is known as the kinetochore. So this DNA specifically is known as the CEN DNA, where CEN stands for centromere or the centromeric DNA. Now, what
Means
is
there's a
important
dorsal
here is
ventral.
that this CEN regions in different chromosomes are interchangeable. That means the CEN region for all the chromosomes, they are the same. So if you isolate the CEN region from one chromosome and you attach it to the other chromosome, there is no change in the division process. So that means these are conserved sequences. The CEN regions are the conserved sequences of DNA which have not changed. And in the eukaryotic chromosomes, you can interchange the CEN region from one chromosome to another chromosome. So the first study on the CEN DNA was done in Saccharomyces or yeast, and it was found that these are very small sequences which are just 110 to 120 base pairs long. So these sequences are 110 to 120 base pairs long, and when they were studied in detail, it was found that they contain three essential regions designated as region 1, region 2, and region 3 in Rome. So the study on the CA DNA was performed on yeast Saccharomyces, and it was found that these sequences are small regions which are just 110 to 120 base pairs divided into three regions, region 1, region 2, and region 3. Of this, region 1 and 3, they are very small, conserved boundary sequences. Why boundary sequences? Because there is a region 1, this will be the region 3, and there will be a region 2. So the boundary regions are 1 and 3. These two regions are those which are bounded by the kinetochore proteins. So the basic proteins which bind to the centromeric regions, they will bind at positions 1 and positions 3. Now this region 2 is where the chromatids separate from each other. So as I said that 80, if there is an 80 rich region, it is easier to separate because if you remember 80 are bonded by 2 hydrogen bonds as compared to GC which are bonded by 3 hydrogen bonds. So it is easier to open up a DNA molecule where it is rich in 80. Now here also, if you remember, the DNA is already replicated, but it is coiled at the centromeric region. It is joined at the centromeric region. So when the pull is generated by the kinetochore spindle fibers, the sister chromatids are pulled towards the other poles. So the pull is generated mainly at this 80 rich region. And because it is AT rich, lesser amount of energy is required to separate the sister chromatids from each other. So there is more than 90% AT in this central segment, or which is known as region 2, and the total length of the central segment is 90 base pairs. So 90 base pairs, 90% of the bases are adenine and thymine. So more than 80 bases out of 90 are adenine and thymine. Rest of the region of this 120 base pairs, which is remaining, that is 25 to 30 base pairs, are the parts which are region 1 and region 3. Now, region 1 and 3 are the portions to which the proteins will bind. That is a spindle fiber, the kinetochore spindle fiber attaches to the proteins, and those proteins are bonded to regions 1 and region 3. So the length of this region, which is a central region or the region 2, that is important, and it should be rich in A and T so that lesser force has to be applied to separate the sister chromatids from each other. So the centromeric DNA is a very small part of the chromosome. It is also known as a primary constriction. It is a part at which the kinetochore spindle fibers will attach, and the chromosomes or the sister chromatids are pulled one towards one pole and the other towards the other pole at the time of anaphase. So the structure of the CEN DNA is very simple. It is 110 to 120 base pairs long, divided into three regions, 1, 2, and 3. Regions 1 and 3 are the ones which are responsible for binding of proteins. And to these proteins, the spindle fibers will then attach. The pull is generated, and the region 2 is AT-rich region, which helps in the separation of the two strands by breaking the hydrogen bond. So the protein component which attaches to region 1 and 3, this protein component is mainly a complex of three proteins which are collectively known as a centromere binding factors. So CBF3 or the centromere binding factors is a group of three proteins which bind to region 1 and 3 of the centromeric region so that the spindle fibers will attach and the spindle fibers will generate a pull, and therefore these sister chromatids will be separated to the poles. Now, the second component of the chromosome, which is important, are the ends of the chromosomes. So, the ends of the chromosomes have got certain special sequences. These ends are known as telomeres, and the sequences which are present at the ends, they provide the structural integrity and individuality to the chromosomes. So, the chromosomes have got a structural integrity, and one chromosome can be differentiated from another chromosome. That is, they are individual bodies, they maintain their individuality due to the presence of certain specific sequences which are known as telomeres, and these sequences are maintained by an enzyme which is known as the telomerase enzymes. So the two ends of the chromosomes, they are known as telomeres. Telomeres are very important for the stability of the chromosome. Number one, it is important to maintain the structural integrity of the chromosome. It is important to maintain the individuality of the chromosome. And it is also important for the complete replication of the chromosomes. So when replication process takes place on the lagging strand, the replication is not completed. And the reason for that is that on the lagging strand, after every particular distance, a RNA primer has to be added. So this RNA primer, that is then extended into fragments which are known as Okazaki fragments. So basically these fragments, they are then joined together and we get the complete DNA molecule. But the problem is that the replication does not go to the entire end of the DNA molecule. So these telomeres, they are important for the replication of the DNA. सुजीत सर क्या बोल रहे हो वाइंड अप कर दूं okay. So the discovery of these telomeres were also done on the basis when Barbara McClintock, she studied these telomeres and she found that if the end of the DNA is broken, if there is any chromosomal breakage in the DNA, this broken end, they join to each other, they can fuse to each other, which the normal chromosome will not fuse to each other. So the discovery was done by Barbara McClintock. And Barbara McClintock noticed that if the chromosomes are broken in the cell, these chromosomes can attach to each other. So one end of the chromosome could attach to the other end of the chromosome, which is not possible in unbroken chromosomes. So she concluded that the ends of the broken chromosomes are sticky and the ends of the normal or the non broken chromosomes are not sticky, which suggested that the ends of the chromosome have got certain unique features, and these ends were named as the telomeres. So these ends are important, as I said, to maintain the individuality of the chromosomes. So these chromosomes do not stick to each other if they have proper ends or if they have the proper telomeric sequences. So it's important for replication. It is important for the stability of the chromosomes. It is important for the individuality of the chromosomes. It is important for the structural framework of the chromosomes. Now, these telomeres, when they were studied in detail, it was found that the telomeres of different organisms have got the same repeat sequence. So I have included certain species in this table. I've not included all of them. So I've included these 6 species in this table, and as in all the species, you can see the repeat sequence always starts with a thymine, followed by an adenine, or adenine may also be absent, and followed by a guanine. So it starts with thymine, it ends with guanine, and it might have an adenine in between the thymine and guanine basis. So the repeat sequence, which has been studied till date in the different organisms, has been starting from thymine at the 5' end. There can be one thymine, there can be two thymines, there can be three thymines, or there can be four thymines. Followed by adenine, which might be present or it might not be present. So there can be one adenine molecule, one adenine base, or the adenine might be totally absent. Followed by a guanine, which can range from one guanine base to 8 guanine bases. So in humans, so I take up this example of humans. In humans, the repeat sequence is TTAGGG. So in every organism, in every human being, this will be the sequence of the telomere that is present. So it will always have two thymines followed by one adenine followed by three guanine residues. Similarly, in Arabidopsis, there are three thymines followed by an adenine followed by three guanines. We have tetrahymen. This is important because this is the first organism where the telomeres were actually studied in detail. So it has two thymines and four guanine residues. But what we can find out here is that the repeat sequence will always start with thymine and end with guanine, might have an adenine in between, or the adenine might also be absent. Now, how are these sequences added to the ends of the DNA molecule? Now, these sequences are added to the ends of DNA molecule by a special enzyme which is present in the cell, and that enzyme is known as telomerase or telomere transferase. This enzyme will add the sequence onto the ends of the DNA molecule. How many sequences are added varies from species to species. It varies from chromosome to chromosome within a species, and it also varies on the chromosome at different stages of the life cycle. So this number is variable. You study this number, it will vary from one species to another species, it will vary from one chromosome to another chromosome in a species, and it will also vary between the different stages of life cycle of a chromosome. So this enzyme telomerase will add the particular species unit at the end of the chromosome. Number of copies will vary. For example, in human beings, as I said, the repeat unit is TTAGGG, and the telomerase enzyme adds about 2500 copies of this repeat sequence at the end of the chromosome in human beings. So about 2500 copies of the sequence are added in case of humans by the enzyme that is telomerase or telomere transferase. Now, when these sequences are added, certain proteins also bind to these sequences, and certain repetitive sequences are also added to the telomere sequences. These sequences are known as the telomere associated sequences, and the proteins are known as shelterin proteins. So, certain specific proteins are added to the telomere sequences. These specific telomere binding proteins, also known as shelterin proteins, they will cap the telomeric DNA so that this DNA is not digested by the enzymes and the DNA has a further stability added to the molecule. So one thing, we have a DNA molecule to which certain specific sequences are added. Those specific sequences are known as telomeres or telomeric sequences. The enzyme that adds these sequences are the telomerase enzymes or the telomere transferase enzymes. Number of sequence varies from species to species, from chromosome to chromosome, and also at different life cycle stages of a chromosome. After the addition of these sequences, certain additional repetitive sequences are added, and certain proteins known as shelterins are attached to these sequences, which further provide stability to the DNA molecule. Now, this enzyme, telomerase enzyme, which is adding the telomere sequences, it has two parts. One is an RNA, which provides the template for addition of sequences. The other is a protein which will synthesize DNA on the RNA template. The RNA template is specifically known as a guide RNA or the gRNA. And this guide RNA in human beings is about 450 nucleotides long. So the telomerase enzyme will attach to the end of the DNA strand after replication. The RNA molecule will provide the template on which further DNA strand is synthesized, and the strand synthesis is carried out by a specific enzyme or a specific protein which is known as reverse transcriptase. So reverse transcriptases are enzymes which can synthesize DNA strand over RNA template. So here also in telomerase enzyme, we have two components. One is the guide RNA or the gRNA, which provides the template for the extension step. And on this template, the DNA has to be synthesized. So a specific enzyme is required, and that enzyme is known as a reverse transcriptase enzyme. Now, this is how the telomerase enzyme attaches the telomere sequences. This example is taken from Tetrahymena. Tetrahymena is a protozoan, and this was the first organism from which the study on the telomeres were conducted. The sequence which is present in Tetrahymena is TTGGGG. So there are two thymines, there is no adenine in between, and there are four guanine residues. Now, what happens? First step is the telomerase enzyme of tetrahymena attaches to the 3' end and adds copies of this sequence. So I've just shown 2 copies here, but दो नहीं होंगी, बहुत सारी copies यहाँ पे add होंगी. So these copies are added, and when the number of copies reach their threshold, a hairpin loop is generated. This is specifically also known as the T loop. T stands for telomere. So there is a hairpin loop specifically known as a T loop which is generated at the end of this molecule, and this provides the stability to the chromosome ends, because if the chromosome ends do not have this region to which further certain proteins will bind, then it can be digested by the enzymes. So then RNA primer is added. This RNA primer will synthesize the DNA strands on the template strand. So this is a template strand. The DNA strand will be synthesized by addition of an RNA primer. After the DNA strand is synthesized, RNA primer is removed. This is a gap which is created. The gap will be filled, and finally this hairpin will be broken or the hairpin will be removed. So this portion, which is TTGGGG, TTGGGG, which is repeated multiple times to the end of the chromosomes, is known as a telomere sequence added by the enzyme which is known as telomerase enzyme. तो यहाँ तक का आपका ओरिजिनल क्रोमोसोम था, जीन पार्ट यहाँ तक है. So these two components, one is centromere and one is telomere, are very important portions of the chromosomes. Now, how to study a chromosome? Chromosomes, as we know, they are named because they can be stained. So chromo comes from chroma, I told you yesterday, and soma means a body. So these are thick bodies which can be stained, and after staining, different portions or different parts of the chromosomes can be studied. So different staining techniques are present, different stains are available which help us to study the karyotype of a plant or animal or any organism. One of these staining techniques is fusion. Now this fusion staining technique is important for the distinguish between DNA and RNA, because DNA gives this fusion staining. DNA gets stained by the fusion staining, and RNA does not get stained by fusion staining. Because when we do fusion staining, the first step in this is the cells are hydrolyzed in acid, and that acid is HCl. So in one normal HCl, the cells are hydrolyzed at temperature of 60 degrees Celsius for about 10 minutes. What this treatment does is it produces an aldehyde group in the deoxyribose molecule. So in the first step, what we are doing is we are subjecting the cells to hydrolysis in one normal HCl at a temperature of 60 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. This treatment produces a free aldehyde group in the sugar molecule, which is a deoxyribose molecule. And then when it is treated with the Schiff's reagent is Fuchsin bleached with sulfurous acid, we get a pink colored staining band. So this fusion staining is specific for DNA because only deoxyribose molecules produce a free aldehyde group. So the ribose molecules will not produce a free aldehyde group. So it is specific for the DNA molecule. So fusion staining we use for DNA molecule. Second kind of staining that we perform is known as Q banding. where Q comes from the stain that we are using. And the stain that we use is quinacrine mustard. So quinacrine mustard staining is performed and we get fluorescent bands. So these fluorescent bands can be observed in the fluorescent microscope. It can be observed with ultraviolet light and the DNA gets separated into bands. This stain or this dye that is quinacrine mustard is an intercalating dye. Intercalating dyes वो होती हैं जो stacks of base pairs के बीच में intercalate करती हैं. So we did the structure of DNA. This is one base pair. This is the other base pair. So certain dyes they intercalate in between these stacks of base pairs. Such dyes are known as intercalating dyes. So quinacrine mustard is one example of an intercalating dye. It intercalates between the stacks of base pairs, but is more specific for AT-rich DNA. So when we stain a DNA molecule with quinacrine mustard, we get fluorescent bands, we get fluorescent patterns. These bands or these patterns can be observed with fluorescent microscope, observed with ultraviolet light, and quinacrine mustard is more specific for AT-rich regions of DNA. So we can find out where in the DNA adenine and thymines are present. If we want to study GC-rich DNA, then we change the dye. So again, the procedure will be the same. We use another intercalating dye, which is known as chromomycin, or we also can use 7-amino actinomycin D. So two type of fluorescent dyes can be used. You want to study specifically the AT-rich regions of DNA, you use quinacrine mustard. Quinacrine mustard staining is followed by observation under fluorescent microscope. We get those regions of DNA which are rich in adenines and thymines. If we want, on the other hand, we want to study which regions of DNA are GC-rich regions, we can change the dye or we can change the fluorochrome and we can use chloromycin or we can use actinomycin D. Another chromosome which becomes very fluorescent by using quinacrine mustard is a Y chromosome. So Y chromosome can also be completely studied with the help of quinacrine mustard dye. So second type of banding that we do is Q banding, where Q comes from the stain that we are using. The stain is quinacrine mustard. It has more affinity for the AT-rich regions. AT-rich regions fluoresces more. They appear more bright when we stain it with chloroquine mustard, and therefore we can find out where in the DNA AT-rich regions are present. Third kind of banding is known as R banding. Now in R banding, we use a different kind of stain that is known as GIMSA. GIMSA is used, but before using GIMSA, we need to incubate the cells in hot phosphate buffer. So first we incubate the cells in hot phosphate buffer, and after this step, after this treatment, we stain it with GIMSA. The bands that we get are known as R bands, and R comes from reverse. Reverse because here those areas will get fluoresced which are not fluoresced in quinacrine mustard. तो alternate bands हम study कर सकते हैं. If you stain a chromosome with quinacrine mustard and GIMSA, before GIMSA you need to treat the cells with hot phosphate buffer. Then we get bands which are located in zones that do not fluoresce with the quinacrine mustard. So you can completely study the chromosome if you use two type of stains. One is quinacrine mustard and one is GIMSA. So the bands formed are known as Q bands and R bands. Another kind of staining is known as G banding. G banding, again, because we are using the stain GIMSA, the banding pattern is known as a G banding pattern. It is after the name of the discoverer of the stain, which is Gustav Gemsa. We call the stain as Gemsa stain. Now, if you first treat the cells in acid, that is citric acid, saline, that is NaCl, And after this treatment, you stain it with Giemsa, then we get a band which is known as the G band. Now G band has the same location as Q band. सेम टाइप का बैंडिंग पैटर्न मिलता है, लेकिन यहाँ एडवांटेज क्या है कि हमें फ्लोरेसेंट माइक्रोस्कोपी की जरूरत नहीं है. So we can observe it under the normal microscope. So G banding again, we stain it with Giemsa, but the treatment or the pre-treatment conditions are different. You incubate the cells first in citric acid and saline or NaCl for 1 hour at 60 degrees Celsius. After this treatment, you will stain it with Giemsa. The banding pattern is the same that we get for Q banding, but the advantage is that we do not need the fluorescent microscope for this banding pattern. Next type of banding is known as C banding, where C stands for constitutive heterochromatin. The constitutive heterochromatin we did yesterday. Heterochromatin is mainly of two types. One which is always darkly stained, which is known as constitutive, and other which is darkly stained in some stages of the life cycle and lightly stained in the other stages of the life cycle. So to study constitutive heterochromatin, जो मैंने आपको कल बताया था कहाँ कहाँ present होता है, centromeric region is constitutive heterochromatic. Pericentric portions, that is regions around the centromere, specifically in chromosome number 1, 9, 16, and the distal segment of the long arm of the Y chromosome. So if you remember, कल हमने किया था शेप क्रोमोसोम्स का, एक लॉन्ग आर्म होती है, एक शॉर्ट आर्म होती है. तो लॉन्ग आर्म का जो एंड सेंट्रोमेयर के पास होता है उसको हम बोलते हैं प्रॉक्सिमल, और जो सेंट्रोमेयर से दूर होता है उसे बोलते हैं डिस्टल. तो ये बेसिकली डिस्टल पोर्शंस को स्टेन करेगा. So C banding में again we use the stain that is Giemsa. Stain will be the same. कौन कौन सी में आर बैंडिंग में भी जिम्सा यूज कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हम पहले सेल्स को इंक्यूबेट कर रहे हैं हॉट फॉस्फेट बफर में. जी बैंडिंग में भी हम जिम्सा यूज कर रहे हैं, लेकिन ट्रीटमेंट सेल का डिफरेंट है. हम पहले सेल्स को इंक्यूबेट कर रहे हैं 1 घंटे के लिए 60 डिग्री सेल्सियस पे सिट्रिक एसिड और NaCl में. सी बैंडिंग में भी वी आर यूजिंग जिम्सा, but before using Giemsa we need to denature the DNA. And denaturing हम किस किस तरीके से कर सकते हैं? That can be done with alkali above 11.3 pH, that can be done with salt treatment, or that can be done by heating the DNA sample. So first you denature the DNA, and after denaturing the DNA, when you stain with Giemsa, the staining gives you a banding pattern which is known as C banding. C stands for constitutive heterochromatin. So all those areas of the chromosome which are constitutively heterochromatic, they all will stain by using this technique. So it is specifically for the centromeric region. For the pericentromeric regions of chromosome number 1, 9, and 16, for the long arm distal portion of the Y chromosome, and the short arm of the acrocentric chromosomes. Humans में 5 acrocentric chromosomes होते हैं, 13, 14, 15, 21 and 22. तो कल मैंने आपको कहा था ह्यूमंस में टीलोसेंट्रिक क्रोमोसोम्स नहीं होते हैं. They have metacentric chromosomes, they have submetacentric chromosomes, and they have acrocentric chromosomes. Acrocentric chromosomes में बहुत छोटी स्मॉल आर्म होती है और बहुत लंबी लार्ज आर्म होती है. So यहाँ पर हम कौन सी आर्म को स्टेन करते हैं? We can stain the small arm, which is also known as the P arm or the petite arm. So P arm of the acrocentric chromosomes in humans, which are 13, 14, 15, 21 and 22, can be stained using the technique, and the banding pattern that we get is known as C banding. Now another region of the nucleus, that is the nucleolus, or the nucleolar organizing region. The nucleolar organizing region basically वो region है जहाँ पर rRNA का synthesis होता है. So this rRNA then complexes with proteins and form the ribosomes. So eukaryotes में ribosomes का synthesis होता है on the nucleolus. So the DNA which is associated with the nucleolus, that is the nucleolar organizing region from which ribosomal RNA is synthesized. So if you need to study the nucleolar organizing region, we specifically stain it with silver nitrate. So silver nitrate staining, also known as silver staining, is used to study the nucleolar organizing region. Nucleolar organizing region is that portion of the DNA which is associated with the synthesis of ribosomal RNA. This ribosomal RNA then complexes with proteins to give us the uh, protein synthesizing machinery of the cell, which is also known as the ribosome. The sixth kind of banding is known as NOR banding, which is specifically for the nucleolar organizing region. We stain using silver nitrate solution. The staining is also known as silver staining, and we get a pattern which is known as NOR banding pattern. Finally, the telomeric region specifically can be stained with acridine orange. So after denaturing a DNA sample, we stain it with acridine orange. It stains specifically the telomeric regions. So this kind of banding pattern where we observe the telomeres is known as T banding. So for T banding, you first denature the DNA sample using heat, and then we stain it with acridine orange. It stains the telomeric region. So there are different banding patterns which can be obtained. There are different stains which are available for staining the chromosomes so that we can study the different areas of the chromosomes, where it is rich in AT, where it is rich in GC, where it has repetitive sequences. That is, you can study the centromere, you can study the pericentromeric areas, you can study the telomeres, you can study the NORs or the nucleolar organizing regions, and you can prepare an idiotype of the chromosome. The idiotype I told you yesterday is a diagrammatic representation like a karyotype, but here you can study the morphological features of the chromosome. You can study the different parts of the chromosome. So this is how we band we stain the chromosome and we get the banding pattern of the chromosome. Now next there are certain organisms which have very large chromosomes present, and these chromosomes are known as giant chromosomes. Giant because they are very big chromosomes, they are very huge chromosomes, they are long, they are thick chromosomes, and therefore they were named as giant chromosomes. They are mostly seen in lower organisms. The first one of the giant chromosome that was studied is now known as a polytene chromosome. And that chromosome was first of all studied in the salivary glands of larvae of Drosophila. So because they were seen or they were studied for the first time in the salivary glands, therefore they were initially also named as a salivary gland chromosomes. So when they were observed for the first time in Drosophila melanogaster, which is a dipteran, they were named as the salivary gland chromosomes. So these chromosomes later were found also in the gut epithelium of certain insects. It was found in the Malpighian tubules and some fat bodies of some dipterans. Later on, when their structure was studied in detail, it was found that these chromosomes they replicate, but the cell does not divide. So they have got many strands, they have got many chromatids attached to each other because the cell is not dividing, only the chromosomes or the DNA is replicating. So later on, the name was changed to polytene chromosomes. Poly means many, teen means thread. So क्योंकि बहुत सारी threads दिखी joined to each other and the cell is not dividing, only the DNA is replicating multiple times. Therefore, the name was given as polythene chromosomes. So they were discovered in the salivary gland of larvae of dipterans. Therefore, they were named as salivary gland chromosomes. They were also studied in the gut epithelium, Malpighian tubules, and some fat bodies of dipterans. Now, these chromosomes are very long and thick chromosomes. So, at the time of metaphase, when they are studied, they are up to 200 times their original size. Therefore, the name as giant chromosomes. They are named giant chromosomes because they are very long chromosomes, they are very thick chromosomes. When studied at the time of metaphase, they go to 200 times their size and therefore they are named as the giant chromosomes. They were first discovered in 1881 by Balbine in the salivary gland of Drosophila or in dipterans, and therefore, as I said, they were also known as the salivary gland chromosomes. Now, discovery was done in 1881, but study, the structural analysis, the extensive studies on this was done by Painter, and that was done in 1930s. तो यहाँ पर जब स्टडीज किया तब पता चला कि इसमें रेप्लिकेशन के बहुत सारे राउंड्स होते रहते हैं लेकिन सेल डिवाइड नहीं होता. न्यूक्लियस इज नॉट डिवाइडिंग, सेल इज नॉट डिवाइडिंग, द डीएनए इज जस्ट कंटिन्यूअसली replicating. Maybe there are 10 rounds of replication, maximum 12 rounds of replication have also been seen. So these giant chromosomes have also been discovered in plants, in the endosperm cells of the plants, in the antipodal cells which provide nutrients to the egg cell, and in the suspensors of the embryo which provide support to the embryo in plants. So these giant chromosomes have been seen in insects, dipterans, it has been seen in plants, and it has been structurally extensively studied to find that these giant chromosomes have got two main portions. One, when you stain, it becomes darkly stained. These portions are known as bands. The other portion, when you stain, they become lightly stained. These portions are known as interbands. So as you can see in this diagram, कुछ portion आपको यहाँ पे darkly stained दिख रहा है. ये डार्कली स्टेन पोर्शंस है और दो डार्कली स्टेन पोर्शंस के बीच में दिस इज अ लाइटली स्टेन पोर्शन. So the darkly stained portion is known as the band. So we know because packaging means वहाँ पे कंडेंस है ज़्यादा कंडेंस्ड है, तो जब आप स्टेन करते हो it takes up more stain, it becomes darkly stained. जहाँ पर ज़्यादा कंडेंस नहीं है, opened up है डीएनए, extended है डीएनए, वहाँ कम स्टेन लेता है and that becomes lightly stained. This portion is the interband. So most of the DNA, that is approximately 85% of DNA of such chromosomes are present in the band portion and 15% approximately is present in the interband portion. Now Drosophila में करीब 5,000 bands होते हैं. These bands are the portions which are rich in DNA. They have approximately 85% of the total DNA that is present. Remaining approximately 15% is present in the interband region. So these bands, because they are so huge, they are so thick, they can also be visible without staining. But obviously when you stain it, they become very sharp and clear. So these bands are visible even without staining, with staining under the microscope, you can observe it. But when you need to go to the detailed structural analysis, you stain it, they take up stains very sharply and you get a very clear band when you observe it under the microscope. Now these bands, they range in thickness from 0.05 microns to 0.5 microns. And every band has about 25,000 base pairs. So these are the bands. As you can see, there are number of chromatids. These are all chromatids. What you see here, these are all chromatids. So there are number of chromatids, which means that the DNA is continuously replicating. The chromatids are continuously being synthesized or formed, but the nucleus and the cell are not dividing. So this portion, which you see as condensed portion, this is the band portion, which contains about 85% of the DNA. बीच का जो ये पोर्शन है रिलैक्स सा है, ओपनड अप एक्सटेंडेड पोर्शन है, जिसमें करीब 15% डीएनए होता है, और इसको हम इंटरबैंड पोर्शन बोलते हैं. So there are numerous strands present. Each strand means one chromatid, and because so many strands are present together, the chromosomes were later named as the polytene chromosomes, where poly means many and teen means thread. So many threads are present. Each thread is one chromatid, and chromatid we know what is it? It is DNA and proteins. तो ये strands क्यों present है? As I said, repeatedly replication हो रहा है, लेकिन nucleus divide नहीं कर रहा है, cell divide नहीं कर रहा है. Therefore, these chromatids are present. After every round of DNA replication, we get two chromatids. तो एक round के बाद 2 to the power n टू क्रोमैटिड्स. तो यहाँ पे आई सेट कम से कम ड्रोसोफिला में जो स्टडी किया गया है 10 राउंड्स होते हैं रेप्लिकेशन के, दैट इज 2 to the power 10. Therefore, in Drosophila, 1024 strands have been studied. So all these strands are present together. The DNA is replicating. Number of rounds of replication are 10 in Drosophila. The nucleus is not dividing. The cell is not dividing. The maximum strands which have been seen is seen in case of Chironomus, which have about 4096 strands, and that is by the n number or the number of rounds of replication being 12. So 2 to the power 12. There are 12 rounds of replication without any cell division, which gives 4096 strands in case of the Chironomus. So all these strands, they are present together, side by side, arranged with each other. Therefore, the chromosomes are also known as polytene chromosomes. So these strands or these fibers, as we see in the band regions, they are highly condensed or highly coiled, and therefore they stain deeply. In the interband regions, because they are more opened up, they are relaxed or they are extended, they take up stains very lightly, and these are the lightly stained portions. So there is an alternating band, interband portion, where band has a maximum DNA, therefore band is the one which is the functional genes. Interband regions do not have the functional genes. तो व्हाट हैपेंस इज, मैंने आपको कहा था जहां डीएनए बहुत कंडेंस्ड होगा वहां एक्सप्रेशन नहीं हो सकता जब तक वो डीकंडेंस नहीं हो. So that is what happens here also when the DNA has to express. Now these band portions they open up क्योंकि बहुत सारा डीएनए है वहां, फिर इंटरबैंड होगा, फिर बहुत सारा डीएनए है that will open up, then there will be an interband. So whenever these band portions they open up, they produce structures which are known as puffs or structures which are known as Balbini rings. So these Balbini rings are present or produced because the chromatin fibers uncoil in these areas. So wherever the DNA is condensed, अब क्योंकि DNA को express करना है, condensed form में it cannot express, it cannot transcribe. So now the DNA opens up. Opens up means it uncoils. It gets decondensed. So when it gets decondensed, it forms structures which are known as puffs, or we also call them Balbini rings after the name of the discoverer. Now, when this DNA opens up, it is the active site of DNA, and these puffs are the sites where RNA will be synthesized. So it looks like this. So when it's opened up, these are puff-like areas which are generated. यहाँ पर DNA has now been decondensed And this is an area which will be actively transcribing and producing the RNA. The lamb brush chromosomes we'll take up tomorrow. This is a second type of giant chromosomes observed in 1882. Polygene chromosomes are also giant chromosomes observed by Balbini in 1881. Tomorrow we'll do lamb brush chromosomes. Thank you. पढ़ लीजिएगा इसको. Take care. Bye bye.